you're not only less well economically off with tariffs, you're less free. People are using you to their ends at the cost of your well-being. And that is why we should oppose tariffs. The birth of our nation was rebelling against tariffs. It's time we honor that tradition. Hello, welcome to the Academy on Capitalism. Today, we are going to revisit the topic of tariffs. But what I want to do is talk about tariffs and property rights and your liberty. But before I get to that, if you find this topic important and you like the conversation or are just merely interested in it, please hit the like button. And you know what? Subscribe to us because we have interesting things constantly coming out. We appreciate you taking a look at our videos, and we'll do our best to make them worth your while. So yes, today, tariffs. In the time I was prepping for this, the news on tariffs changed at least 3 times. So rather than try to talk about any specific aspect of a tariff policy, I want to go to fundamentals, to the nature, to the root of the problem, if you will. So here at the Academy on Capitalism and Limited Government, we believe in property rights, straight up. And property rights accord people a certain freedom of association, a certain freedom to buy and sell as they see fit because it's their property. And it also implies a certain freedom of association because you don't buy and sell with yourself now, do you? That's just kind of silly. So you're buying and selling with other people you choose to deal with. And it's your judgment that counts, not mine. Not somebody else's, certainly not the government's. That's what it is to be free, right? Land of the free, home of the brave. Well, okay, time to put our money where our mouths is, literally. Are we free? Well, with tariffs, no. Tariffs are a direct violation of both our property rights and our liberty. There's no other way around this. Now, I know what you might say. Some people are going to say, hey, look, this is just some grand strategy, okay? And when we're doing this strategy, we're going to get all this good stuff. Stop right there. That strategy is treating every single consumer in the United States as a pawn. We're not pawns in your game. We're not pawns in any game. If we're free people. If we're not a free people, then fine. Move me like a chess piece, like Adam Smith talks about. But if we want to maintain and insist that America is a free country and that the people within this country have property rights, liberty rights, freedom of association as free, adult, autonomous individuals, you are not permitted to use us as pawns. In no moral theory is that okay to treat someone like that. And that's what these tariffs are doing. Fundamentally, they're saying, hey, look, tariff policy, and I want to be clear about this too. In the Academy on Capitalism, we talk about policy. I'm not talking about people. Once you start talking about people, insults start flying, and then we make these grand judgments about people, and God forbid somebody has a good idea. We're not going to listen to it anymore because we're too busy talking about the person. So I'm not talking about people, and there's a host of characters in this play, okay? What we're talking about is the policy, whether it's the past administration, this administration, future administrations, okay? That's what we're talking about. And this policy of tariffs, as I said, if you're using it as a bargaining strategy, it's using us as pawns. It is directly saying, we don't care what you freely choose. We're going to threaten to intervene on that because we, whoever the we are, could be the executive branch, could be the legislative branch, right? But we don't like what you're doing, and we're going to intervene. People overlook, I know, get a little academic here, but John Locke, people will talk about the second treatise of government, where he talks about people having rights to life, liberty, and property, and how that served as the foundation of the Declaration of Independence. And that's some really great stuff. But people rarely talk about the first treatise, where he directly shows nobody can prove a direct lineage to Adam. And the purpose of this? Well, nobody's God on earth. We're all people. We all have the same authority. Nobody has a natural authority over somebody else to tell them what to do. to just force them what to do. Now, I'm not going to be an anarchist here. Okay, we'll have laws and we'll have justifications for those, but those justifications have to appeal to our reason, and there have to be some darn good reasons for them in order to intervene on anybody's liberty and to prohibit their actions and their free interactions with other people. So with tariffs, do we get such a good reason? Well, let's look at the underlying. Once again, I want to go to the fundamentals. People worried about tariffs seem to be worried about a trade deficit. So what does the trade deficit mean? Well, boiling it down to the basics, it means I like buying my refrigerators from somewhere else, not in the United States, not in Illinois, not in California, maybe from China, maybe from someplace else. But I believe my refrigerator actually did come from China. I like the price. I like the quality. The trade-off between the two is exactly what I wanted, and I bought it. That was my money, by the way. My money that I earned and I worked for. And I know there's a lot of people out there who watch our videos who adamantly get concerned when certain administrations, let's say, want to say that you didn't build that. That's not yours. You didn't earn that. That money is actually the government's or societies or whatever else. No. Hold on a second, right? Rock bottom. I earned that money. I worked for it. I negotiated for it. I put in the sweat and tears, and I paid the taxes on it already, by the way. Now I'm going to pay taxes on it a second time with tariffs, but right? So it's my money. And now somebody's saying, well, yeah, it's yours, but you can only buy from certain people. If you buy from certain other people or certain other areas, we're either not going to let you do that, or we're going to make it a lot more expensive, or we're going to what, right? We're going to make it more difficult for you. See that money you earned? We're going to make it worth less because we're going to make these products cost more because we only want you buying from within the borders, or we only want you buying from those countries who buy as much from us, right? That's our criteria. So, back up a second. What? I mean, what am I getting out of this? Your guess is as good as mine. I have not been offered a sufficient reason, right, why our freedoms should be encroached like this. And the reasoning is it is a bit bizarre, right? So if we're in a trade deficit with a country, well, okay, we're in a trade deficit with a country. That means we buy more from them than they buy from us. Okay, fine. Now you want to put tariffs on them. Well, who does that help? Well, the exporters, who we already know are in the minority. We already know that there's going to be retaliatory tariffs, which hurt who? The importers, the people who are buying the products coming in, who we already know by the data outnumber the exporters. So if we're just going to do sort of a cost-benefit analysis here, the tariffs, in their very strategy of, trying to deal with trade deficits, are hurting more people than they're helping right off the bat. That doesn't seem to be a good reason to prevent me from buying from someplace. Right? That seems like the antithesis of a good reason for me to buy someplace. Well, then people will say, well, okay, all right, it's for the broader social good that these goods are produced at home. All right, I don't see it, but let's walk that walk. Let's walk down. I'll walk with you down that. So what we're saying is certain things are produced abroad, and somehow American society would be better if they were brought back within our own borders. All right, I want to use an analogy here real quick. All right, so I live out here in the heartland, right? A lot of corn, a lot of soybeans. In the summer, that's all you can see is soybeans and corn. And I'll often hear people talk about biofuels. What a great thing. You're going to plant and we'll do biofuels. And isn't that great? Somehow, because planting stuff in the ground and just growing it's almost free or something. I don't know. But biofuels are great. Okay, fine, whatever. You love the biofuels. Here's the rub. There is not one square foot of arable land in the Midwest that's not being farmed. Take a drive down any country road, take a drive down any highway, there is not 1 square foot that's being unused. So guess what? You want to plant biofuels? Okay, but guess what? You're now going to have to decide what corn, it could be feed corn, could be sweet corn that goes to your table. What corn are you going to eliminate in that market, or how much less soybeans are you going to produce, right? It's a trade-off. You're going to produce less of something else in order to produce the biofuels. By the way, the same happens with solar radiation too. If you put up big solar panels in all these fields, which I see is being done, what you're doing is taking arable farmland out of production. So yeah, you're getting the sun to produce electricity, but you're trading off what that land could have done in soy and corn. It's a cost, okay? So how in the heck does that apply to all this? Well, here's the deal. I'm not aware of any spare manufacturing capacity. People are producing basically what their factories can produce. Maybe can do a little bit more here and there, but it doesn't pay anybody to have slack capacity. So before the tariffs go into effect, it pays businesses to, have the production facilities that they need to produce the products that they need. It doesn't pay them any better to then build this extra surplus or have this extra surplus that they're not using, right? Just in case or something like that. Maybe a little bit, like parking lots are a little bit bigger, but seriously, why are you going to invest all that extra capital and not get a return on it? That's a losing proposition. So I don't know where the spare manufacturing capacity is. Unemployment rates around 4%. Where's the spare labor? I mean, where's the labor going to come from? And especially since we are kind of trying to make sure that only those who have the documentation to be in the United States are working in the United States, we can't count on any of that pool filling any spare labor. So where's the labor come from? And I do know that some have postulated there's this big pool of people who, hey, they would work if they could find work, or they would work if something were better. Hold on a second. First of all, places are hiring all over the place. So if you want a job, you can get a job. Might not be the job you want, okay? But you work towards the job you want. You can get hired. Second of all, when we use statistics, say unemployment rates, they're flawed. I know they're flawed. Everybody does, okay? But they're the numbers we have, and they do enable us to do sort of comparisons across time, right? To see whether unemployment's going up or down. Given all their flaws, there is a sort of consistent rate of measurement of it. So we're at a 4% unemployment rate, which is pretty darn low, near what people would call the natural unemployment rate. Where are the statistics that there's this somehow untapped pool that's willing and ready to go to work as long as it's in, I don't know, whatever's coming home, steel, or, these people are just sitting at home waiting for steel jobs, I guess. There's no data. Is he just making it up? Could the pool be there? Sure. Could the pool not be there? Sure. Could the Loch Ness Monster be there? Sure. But I got no data. I got no proof. I got no pictures. I got nothing. Except the prognostications of somebody who just wants to invent a story to hoodwink me into being a pawn into some international game that once again, doesn't benefit me at all. And in fact, it hurts me. And you might say, well, poor Bill, boo-hoo, it hurts Bill. No, not boo-hoo, it hurts Bill. You know who it really hurts? Hurts people on fixed incomes, because they're not getting raises. They got nowhere else to go. They got the money they got, right? You want to talk about things already being used, or I was, right? If they got a fixed income, that means they got to buy less somewhere else. And people who are not earning the wages that they'd like to be earning, maybe they're classified as poor by statistics, right? It hits them the hardest. The affluent, okay, whatever. I'll give up some niceties here and there. It pinches. I don't like it. But, if you're concerned all about those, like I said, who are on fixed incomes or poor, and this hits hard, okay? And once again, why is it going to hit hard? Why is it that all of this is, these chickens come home to roost? Well, like I said, there's more importers than exporters, first of all. So there's more buyers of these products than there are sellers. So in the retaliatory tariffs, at the very least, prices are going to go up for all of these people. Then you're going to say, well, we bring the things back home. Well, okay, but just like with the biofuels, where are the resources going to come from to actually build these things and have these factories or whatever that come home? What's going to happen is that capital and labor are going to come from other areas, other industries, right? Maybe the importers that are hurting now or whatever. Capital will flow into these new things. But that's not a net gain. You're not seeing the loss, right? You're not seeing labor being bid from these other places, right? Now, labor rates will go up, but so will costs, and then so will prices. End up in that sort of inflationary spiral. And the capital now that comes into these new industries is capital that's not going into other industries, which means they're not going to grow. They can't invest. They can't expand, whatever they are. But you're not going to see that, because all that is a reduction in output. They don't disappear. If they disappeared, that might appear on somebody's map and they might get worried. They're just going to get smaller. Output's going to get less. Their employment will get less, right? We'll have less in order then to supposedly have this thing now in our country that wasn't here before, that's producing. Maybe you could still say, yeah, but it's the trade-off's worth it. I doubt it. I doubt the calculations work like that. But let's say that you're still going to just hang on to this and say that. Here's the last problem that we're really going to have with this. And this is a limited government issue, and this is a business issue. Your property rights, your liberty, your freedom to choose to do with your money and the stuff that you make and build, right? You're buying and selling. All of that depends on being able to predict the future. Now, I don't mean like a crystal ball or Harry Potter kind of thing, but things are, kind of stable. So if I'm going to go work as, an accountant, it's because I pretty much expect the accounting industry to kind of stay the same. Wages might go up a little, wages might go down a little bit. One of the big, I don't know how many there are left. There used to be 5. One of the big ones might close down or whatever. But by and large, I expect the field to be the same. So that's what I'm betting on, right? If I build a factory, I'm by and large expecting sort of the competitive circumstances roughly to remain the same, right? There are fluctuations, COVID happens and stuff like that, but I need to be able to plan, because if nothing else, the bank's going to want to know how I pay them back. And the story that I give them better make sense. And the story that I give them will be expected future returns. And then you're going to say, well, how do you calculate those expected future returns? It's going to be on a plausible assumption that things are going to remain the same. Okay, or maybe get a little better, but right, I need that consistency. Business needs that consistency. In the current non-limited government approach being taken towards tariffs, that is where tariffs now are the dictate of the executive, whatever they want to say. Where's the consistency? So you want people to build things at home if you're for the tariffs, and that's your argument, right? But where's the incentive? When do I actually start this? Do I start it on the day that the threats are made, the tariffs are going to go up? Should I start now? No, I can't, because they're not really in effect. So that'd be kind of putting the cart before the horse. So maybe I'll wait till they go in effect. Oh, they're going into effect. Okay, maybe I start now. Oh, wait, nope, they're on a 90-day hiatus. What? Now, at the end of the 90 days, what's my guarantee that these are actually going to go into place or stay into place? I get none. So if the goal is to inspire capital formation and building in the United States, right? We want manufacturing or steel or something. The very discretionary authority that's being wielded, and being wielded in such a fashion that it appears arbitrary, even to the domestic producers and investors, right? Why would you invest anything? Why would you? There's no reason at this point. And even if they do go into effect, whenever, and you say, maybe you could say, okay, well, we can count on them now. They're in place and they're going to stay. First of all, then what you've admitted is you're no longer negotiating with these other countries about trade deficits or anything, right? We're just going to put them here, bring that industry home. The reason you want limited government is because you got to remember your opponents or the people you don't like, they're going to come back. They're going to get elected someday, right? In the entire history of the United States, that's what happens. Sometimes this party's in power, sometimes that party's in power. And if the executive branch has the authority to change tariff rates based on its declaration that somehow it's a national emergency and Congress doesn't attempt to limit that. So what if I have a 5-year project, right? I'm going to build something. It's going to take me 3-4 years to build, maybe 2-3 years to build, but then I'll still need 2-3 years to at least recover my costs, right? If I'm building a factory, 6 years, 7 years, 10-year timeline to try and get my return on capital and investment. And I can't even count on the next administration not entirely reversing this or changing it however they will. Why would I invest in that? What reason on earth could I have to actually make that investment? Because I have no reasonable, and I mean reasonable, assurance that it's going to stay in place. I mean, treaties are supposed to give us reasonable assurance, and we've had trade treaties, which don't seem to matter now. So if the treaties don't matter and it's whatever the executive says in whatever administration we have and whatever party we have, the heck with that. There have to be safer ways to invest, better areas for return. The risk just seems to be too high. So at the fundamental level, tariffs treat us as, or tariff strategy treats us as pawns by explicitly saying your property rights don't matter here. Your decision and your choice, your freedom and your liberty don't matter. Who you want to buy from and the associations and business associations you want to have, your choice, once again, we're going to override. You won't be free. The reasoning given in return is, well, one thing about trade deficits, but as I already said, importers, if we have a deficit, importers outweigh exporters. So I don't understand the calculation there. Then if it's some sort of argument that, well, the overall benefit of these tariffs is going to be to bring some very important industry home, well, the actions of an unrestrained executive, no matter which party, creates an area of uncertainty great enough that it's not going to spawn investment. It can't. The atmosphere needed for that investment to be able to count on being able to build something and actually make a return on it isn't there. And so that falls apart too. So in the end, we're just pawns for pawns' sake. That's not being a free people. So that's why I wanted to talk to you today and the Academy on Capitalism here. I wanted to talk to you today about, we can argue all day long about who said what and who's an idiot and who's not. And where does that get you? It gets you nowhere. Right. And we can try to discern, like, what's the next step going to be or what's the next policy going to be. And okay, you could do that. But what I want to do is get down to fundamentals. And it's time for the government to stop domestically and stop internationally treating our rights to property, our rights to freedom of association, our rights to live our lives as we decently choose. It's time for the government to stop interfering with that. Tariffs don't further that. Tariffs, in fact, hurt that. They harm our individual liberty and make us less free. And we're letting other people do that. And we don't think here at the Academy that that should be the case. So what can we do? We're doing what we can here by reaching out and talking to you. I don't own stock in any particular political party. Neither does the Academy. We are a non-political organization. But what we can do is just do our best to try and inform people. You're not only less well economically off with tariffs, you're less free. And people are using you to their ends at the cost of your well-being. And that is why we should oppose tariffs and increasing tariffs specifically. And furthermore, under the unconstrained, right, discretion of one individual. That's dangerous. You know what? I was going to look this up before, but I'm pretty sure the Boston Tea Party was about tariffs, taxes on tea, right? The birth of our nation was rebelling against tariffs. It's time we honor that tradition. Thank you. If you liked it, hit like. If you want to subscribe, hit subscribe. Please feel free to leave a comment. If I get around to it, I can answer them. I'd like to try and do that. And we'd love to hear what you say and love to see your input. And it's a public space for people to share ideas. So thank you very much for tuning in again. And I hope everybody has a very nice day. And I hope in the not too distant future, it's a tariff-free day. Thank you very much.